What if, and stick with me here, what if everything we think is real, our everyday reality, is actually, well, just a shadow play?
Ooh, I like that. A shadow play of reality.
That's kind of the head trip we're going on today as we explore the very nature of reality and life itself.
Hmm.
And to guide us, we've got some incredible sources like some classic philosophy, some cutting-edge science, even a little pop culture, just to spice things up.
I think it's amazing how people have always wondered about this stuff using different tools to try to figure out, like, the limits of what we know, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah. And the thing is, this isn't just some like abstract, head in the clouds kind of thinking. What we figure out here, it actually matters, like
Yeah.
big time, for how we understand ourselves in the universe, even how we, shape our future.
It does have real implications, that's for sure.
Okay, so before we get too far ahead of ourselves, let's lay down some philosophical groundwork, right? We're going old school here, like way back to ancient Greece with Plato's allegory of the cave.
Ah, Plato. Gotta love him.
Right. So uh, he wants us to imagine these prisoners. They're chained up in a cave, right?
Hmm.
And their whole world, their whole existence is just shadows on the wall. And get this, they think those shadows are the real deal.
So they're basically living in this world of illusions, totally clueless.
Exactly. But then one prisoner, he breaks free.
Yeah.
Escapes the cave and bam, steps into the sunlight. And for the first time, he sees the world, the real world in all its vibrant three-dimensional glory.
It's like that journey, the philosopher's quest for true knowledge, breaking free from the limits of our senses.
Okay, so I'm getting this Matrix vibe, right? Like taking the red pill and realizing, whoa, there's this whole other level of reality that I was totally oblivious to.
Yeah, I see that. It's a perfect analogy. What Plato's saying is that, like, what we think is reality might just be, a messed up version of what's really out there. It could be that we're all trapped in our own little caves of perception.
That's kind of freaky, right? Makes you question everything. So like, if we can't even trust our senses, how can we be sure of anything? Is there anything like solid to hold on to?
That's the big question, isn't it? That's where Rene Descartes comes in, remember him? With his famous line, I think, therefore I am.
Okay, yeah, vaguely. It's been a minute since my philosophy class.
So Descartes, he argues that even if everything we experience is like totally fake, totally an illusion, the very fact that we can doubt, that we can think, well, that proves that our minds have got to exist. Our consciousness, our ability to question things, that's the one thing we can be absolutely sure of.
So even if I'm like just a brain in a jar hooked up to some crazy simulation, the fact that I'm having these thoughts, these doubts, it means something, right?
Right? It suggests that maybe, just maybe, our minds, our consciousness are like the foundation of our reality.
Not-
Even if we don't know what that reality truly is.
Okay, so that's deep.
And it leads to this other question, a question that has bothered philosophers forever. Can something exist? Can anything exist if there's no one there uh, to see it, to experience it?
It's like that old riddle, right? If a tree falls in a forest and no one's around, does it make a sound?
Exactly. Like, does reality actually need an observer? It's a question that still sparks debate, especially when we get into, when we start talking about the crazy world of quantum mechanics.
Well, hold that thought because that's where we're headed next. Buckle up, folks.
This is where things get really interesting.
All right, folks, get ready for a serious mind bender because we're about to jump into the quantum realm, where things get really, really weird.
Yeah, quantum mechanics is all about that subatomic world, like the tiny building blocks of everything. And here's the crazy part. Down there, the rules are totally different from what we're used to, in our everyday lives.
So it's like discovering a whole new set of laws, like a secret code that runs the universe, but only at the tiniest level.
Exactly. And one of the most mind-boggling ideas is this thing called superposition. It's kind of hard to wrap your head around, but the famous Schrödinger's cat thought experiment explains it pretty well.
Okay, Schrödinger's cat, I've heard of that, but to be honest, it's always been a bit of a mystery to me. Like, what's the deal with the cat in the box?
Right. So picture this. You've got a cat, a regular cat, sealed up in a box. And inside the box, there's this device. It has a 50-50 chance of releasing a deadly poison. Now, here's where it gets strange. According to quantum mechanics, until we open the box and actually look inside, the cat is in a state of, get this, superposition, meaning it's both alive and dead at the same time.
Hold on, wait a minute. So the cat isn't just in some unknown state, it's actually both alive and dead simultaneously. Like, how is that even possible?
I know, right? It's one of the, well, it's definitely one of the weirdest things about quantum mechanics. See, in the quantum world, these tiny particles can exist in multiple states all at once until someone observes them, measures them, and then they like collapse into just one state.
So you're telling me that the cat's fate literally depends on us opening the box. That just seems, I don't know, crazy.
It's true, and it highlights how important the observer is in quantum mechanics. Like the very act of observing, of looking, can actually influence the outcome of things.
So does that mean, like, the moon disappears when we're not looking at it?
Huh? No, no, no. It doesn't work that way on on a large scale like that. Measuring things at the quantum level is totally different from how we observe stuff in our everyday lives. But the Schrodinger's cat thought experiment, it helps us to like grasp the weirdness of superposition and how at the subatomic level, reality is all about probabilities, like a giant game of chance.
Okay, so reality is like this fuzzy cloud of possibilities until someone observes it, and then it solidifies into one specific outcome. Almost like our minds are shaming reality. Which brings us back to that earlier question. Can something exist without an observer? It's almost like quantum mechanics is like giving us a scientific way to explore these philosophical questions, right?
Totally. And this whole connection between the observer and reality, well, it leads us to another mind-bending idea, the simulation hypothesis, which I think you mentioned you wanted to discuss.
Yeah, the simulation hypothesis, the idea we could all be living in a giant computer simulation, sounds like something straight out of the Matrix.
Exactly. But it's not just a sci-fi thing.
Yeah.
Philosopher Nick Bostrom, he's made a pretty serious argument that if advanced civilizations get to a point where they can create super realistic simulations, then it's actually more likely that we're living in a simulation than than in the original base reality.
That's a wild idea.
Yeah.
But are there any, like, holes in this argument? What do people who don't buy into the simulation hypothesis say?
Well, it's definitely a hot topic. Some people argue that it's all based on assumptions about, how technology will develop in the future, and that's impossible to predict. Others question whether it's even possible to create a simulation so perfect that, the beings inside it would never suspect they weren't in the real world.
It's like, it makes you wonder, how would we even know? Would we see glitches in the Matrix?
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe there are subtle clues we haven't noticed yet. And speaking of movies, you mentioned The Matrix, but there are so many films that play with these ideas of reality and perception and like even simulation.
Yeah.
Inception with its dream within a dream thing, that's a great example.
Totally. And don't forget Interstellar. That movie really dives into the whole nature of time and space and suggests that maybe, just maybe, our understanding of reality is way more limited than we realize.
It's amazing how these stories, these fictional narratives can tap into something so deep within us, this fascination with the nature of reality and our place in the universe.
Absolutely. It's like they give us a safe way to explore these big questions, these mind-blowing concepts, and question everything we thought we knew.
But what about you? What movie or story really made you question reality and why?
That's a tough one. There are so many good ones, but I think for me, it would have to be 2001, A Space Odyssey. That ending, with the journey through space and time, it's so ambiguous. It really pushes the boundaries of what we think of as real, and it leaves you with more questions than answers.
I love that. It's amazing how, how these fictional things can spark such deep philosophical and scientific questions. And it seems like our fascination with testing the boundaries of reality, it goes beyond just the theoretical. We're always trying to push those boundaries in the real world, too.
That's so true. Whether it's through, advancements in AI or exploring the depths of space or even pushing the limits of human endurance, we seem to be driven to explore the unknown and challenge what we think is possible.
And speaking of pushing boundaries, our exploration now takes us to the very definition of life itself. It's a place where the lines between natural and artificial are getting, well, they're getting blurrier and blurrier all the time. It's pretty mind-blowing when you think about it. We've come so far in understanding life that now we're not just, watching it. We're actually creating it, like building it from scratch in labs, using tools like CRISPR and stuff.
It's true. Synthetic biology is just exploding with possibilities. But of course, it brings up some big ethical questions like, are we playing God? By creating life this way? And what happens if things go wrong? What are the consequences of, letting synthetic life loose in the world?
Yeah, it's like opening Pandora's box, right? What if these synthetic organisms, what if they like evolve in ways we don't expect or mess up natural ecosystems?
Those are totally valid concerns. I mean, like any powerful technology, we got to be careful, right? We need to figure out some clear ethical guidelines before we go too far. The potential benefits are huge, though. Like imagine new medicines, sustainable food, even cleaning up pollution. But we have to weigh that against the risks.
It's a huge responsibility. And, synthetic biology isn't the only area where the lines are blurring between natural and artificial. We're seeing it with AI, too.
Yeah.
Like, think about ChatGPT. It can write poems, have conversations, and sometimes it feels almost human.
Right. It's incredible how sophisticated these systems are becoming. They can learn, adapt, create. It really makes you wonder, could AI actually become conscious, like truly self-aware, with feelings and
Well, I
thoughts?
mean, it's been a classic sci-fi trope forever, but now it feels like
Yeah.
like it could actually happen. And if it does, how do we treat these AI beings? Do they have rights? I mean, do we owe them any kind of ethical consideration?
Yeah, these are some really, really tough questions, and we need to start figuring them out now before it's too late, before the technology gets even further ahead of us. If AI becomes conscious, it'll change everything. Our whole ethical framework will need to adapt to these new forms of life.
It's a challenge, for sure, but an important one. And it's not just about AI and synthetic life either. I mean, we humans, we're constantly pushing our own biological boundaries. Like, think about astronauts, right? They endure extreme conditions in space, pushing the limits of what humans can handle.
Yeah, space exploration is a perfect example of that drive we have, to explore the unknown, to go beyond what we think is possible. And it's not just about physical boundaries either. We're also exploring our inner space, through things like meditation and psychedelics. Practices that can like completely change our perception of reality and create really powerful spiritual experiences.
So we're always trying to expand our understanding of reality, both inside and out. But
Right.
why? Why do we even bother? What's driving this constant need to explore and push the limits?
I think it's part of what makes us human. We're curious. We want to understand, our place in the universe. We search for knowledge, not just for like practical reasons, but for the joy of discovery,
Yeah.
for the way it expands our
It's
consciousness.
about something deeper then,
Yeah.
something more, I don't know, existential.
Absolutely. When we push these boundaries, we're challenging our assumptions, about what's real, about what life is, and ultimately we're searching for answers to those big questions. Who are we? Why are we here? Those kinds of things.
This has been quite a journey, hasn't it?
Yeah.
We started with Plato's cave, dove into quantum mechanics, pondered living in a simulation, and explored the ethics of, artificial intelligence and synthetic biology. It's a lot to take in, and I bet you're leaving with more questions than answers.
It's always about the questions, right? And remember what Einstein said. Reality is merely an illusion, albeit a very persistent one. So keep questioning, keep exploring, keep pushing those boundaries.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And on that note, we'll wrap up our deep dive into the mysteries of reality and life. But, the exploration doesn't have to end here. There's a ton of stuff out there, books, articles, documentaries, all sorts of resources to help you keep digging deeper. So keep learning, keep questioning, and most importantly, keep an open mind. Who knows what incredible discoveries are waiting for us just beyond what we currently think of as real.